So now that we've set up our project correctly, what I'm going to do now is show you how to model this 3D fork. Okay, so I'm just going to save this scene again. 1 second, so save scene as, and I'm going to call it V1, and I'm going to put there in brackets fork, and then I'm just going to click save. Cool. Right, so before we actually go into modeling this, you can see that I've got a nice little setup here. If we look at my 4 views, let's zoom out. We can see that I've got a top view. So if we delete the model, you can see I've got a top view, and where it says front by here, I've got a side view. I could have put it in the side X, but the way it worked out, I put it in the front. It just made sense to put it there. Otherwise, I had to put it in this one and rotate it. It doesn't really matter. Let's not overcomplicate things. But if we kind of have a look, this is what we've got. The cube, we'll start with a cube by here, extrude out the handle, extrude out the individual prongs. So you can see why I've gone for this setup. I need to be able to see that I'm modeling it correctly from the top view because it goes wide on this bit by here, but we can't tell that from the side view. So we need both views. You could eyeball it, you could certainly eyeball it, but we need both views. So what we need to do is start from scratch. And these little numbers by here, I'm actually going to get rid of them. If you do want to see, that's your polygon count, but you really don't have to worry about that. It's just in display, heads up display, and poly count, but I'm going to turn mine off because you don't need them for this. So what I need to do is I want to import some image planes. Now, just to remind you, these little squares, they're 1 centimeter squares, and we can tell this by going into our settings, and I think it's in, just click settings there, working units centimeter. So that just gives us an idea for scale. Now, what I'm going to do is in my top view, in this window, just hit spacebar to get to your 4 views, and if none of them are labeled top, just click one of them, go to panels, orthographic, and make sure top is selected. And now we're in our top view, we can kind of go left, right, and forward and back. Yeah. So what we want to do is we want to go to view, come down to image plane, and we want to click import image. So if we do that, you'll get a little window. And if you've dragged all these images into your source images folder, you should be able to select fork, top view, and click open. What this gives you is something called an image plane, okay? And what we can do is, let's have a zoom in first of all. Or what you can do is put your mouse over the top view and hit spacebar, and now we're just in the top view. So holding Alt and middle mouse button, I'm moving around, and this is right mouse button. Yeah, just to zoom in and out while holding Alt. Okay, so we've got this image plane. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 centimeters long. I think we could go for a little bigger. So you've got your move tool, you've got your rotate tool, and you've got your scale tool. The shortcuts are W for move, E for rotation, and R for scale. So W, E, R, all next to each other on the keyboard. I actually want to scale this up. I want this to be, it's 10 centimeters because it's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units each side of the center line. So it's 10 in total. I'm just going to increase this, click and drag this square by here once you've hit R on the keyboard, or scale over here, which is this one. And I'm going to click and drag from the center, and it's just going to scale it up. And we're going to go to, well, how many units is that now? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then there's going to be another 9 this side. So that's 18 units. Okay, so that 18 centimeters seems about right. If I hit spacebar with my mouse in the middle, I can now look at all of my views. So, for example, you've got front side, and this is the perspective view where you can fly around in 3D. Okay, so there we go. Next, what we need to do is we need to import our side view and make sure it fits. So I'm going to go, let's click in side by here. Okay, so let's go view and view image plane again and import image. Let's get our window, and it's going to be fork side view, and click open. Okay, so let's have a look at what's going on. We've got this image plane in here, and it's not actually aligning to the side, which is fine. In this side view, what we're going to do is, first of all, hit W on the keyboard. It'll get your move key, and you can click and drag to move this up. Don't click and move it from the center because it'll go left, right, up, and down. If you want to just move it up, just click and drag this arrow like in After Effects, and we're just going to drag so it's above this main line by here. We can tell in our perspective view that actually this needs to be rotated. So you've got your rotate key over here, and you can click and drag and rotate it like so. Now, when we're looking at this, we want to rotate it exactly 90 degrees, okay? So there's a nice quick way to do that. If we come into the channel box, which is just on the side, and what you want to do is just click off and then click your image plane again. So just clicked off and clicked it. We've now got rotate in here. So if we come back, it's actually, when it's dead on 0, because remember, we work in degrees, so just bring this back to 0 and 0.2, so it's only a shaving out, but just click in there, 0. So that's now perfectly at an angle, okay? Next thing we want to do is we want to hit W on the keyboard and push this backwards, just like so. You see when we push it backwards, have a look down here, it doesn't actually move any further away from the camera. So we're just going to push it backwards just there, so you know we've got room to work. Also, what you'll notice is the scale is off. So R on the keyboard, and I'm going to scale from the center. Okay, again, don't scale from lengthways like that because it actually stretches the image. So scale from the center and it'll scale up uniformly. And I'm just going to eyeball it here, and yeah, just a little bit more like that. There we go. And also hit W for move because I want to move this up again, just above that main line. So we'll see from the side here, it's actually down a little bit. So just move it up, and there we go. That is now our image planes set up. So we can just click off and we can start modeling. Now I've got this outliner on the side, and I don't want you to worry about it. But if you want to see that, just go to Windows and turn on outliner, because it shows me, it's almost like a layers panel. You've got image plane, okay, and let's just delete that one. So I've got image plane 3 and image plane 4. Yours are likely called 1 and 2. Now I want to start modeling this fork out of a cube. So up the top, you've got poly modeling, or they could be called polygons, depending on what version you're using. I'm just going to click the cube. And what you'll see is now in the center, and every one, I've got a cube. I'm going to zoom into the top, okay? And let's first have, I'm just going to show you that it is a cube there, 3-dimensional cube. Now, polygons inside, this is a polygon. Polygon primitives are made out of faces. So if we go around, we can select different faces, like the face of a dice, okay? And you know, you can move that face if you want to, whatever, don't yet, but yeah, made out of faces, vertex, which are corners, so you can individually manipulate them, and they're made out of edges, so you can individually manipulate the edges. So now that we know that, let's just come back, right click and go to object mode. What I want to do is I want to get my my vertexes, get these vertexes, and because I'm on the top, when I click and drag over these two, it actually selects the 4 of them, because think about it, I'm clicking and dragging from above, and these two are directly below. So all you want to do, click and drag like that, and I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to then use this red arrow to pull these vertexes all the way back, and we want to kind of align them as best we can to the back by here. And yeah, that's going to be fine for now. Maybe just move them a touch down like that. Brilliant. And what we want to do with these vertex is we want to come forward to where it starts, you know, coming outwards. And I'm going to move these ones. So I click and drag, make sure vertexes is selected, but click and drag, and I've moved them forward. And I'm going to move them just down a touch. Now the problem I've got quite a few problems. I can't see the image now through this, but also these two vertexes are a little bit wide. They're too wide. So they're still selected because they're yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get the scale tool. Now, if I scale from the center, have a look in here. If I scale from the center, it'll scale down the width and the height. I don't want to do that. I want to scale just the width. So I'm going to get this blue one by here, and it's just going to scale it like that. I don't want to scale the height yet. I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to scale it just like that. So what we've got so far, we've taken that cube, and it's still technically a cube. We've just warped all the vertexes. Now, we've got a problem. We can't see through it. So what I'm going to do is right-click on top of the object and come back to object mode, okay? And over in your attribute editor, which is this menu by here, if you click, you may have to click arrows left and right, but eventually if you click all the way to the right, you've got something called Lambert 1. What that means is this is the material that's currently applying. So if I change a color, you can see that it changes, but don't worry about changing the color. What we want to do is we want to come down to transparency, just like opacity in After Effects, if you've used that. So I'm just going to bring the opacity down just so we can half sort of see through it, okay? So basically that's what we've got. Now, that's all very well and good. What we want to do next is I'm going to come back into this top view. So with my mouse over here, I'm just going to click spacebar. And now this is my full view. What I want to do is I want it to be a little bit wider by here, maybe a little bit thinner by here. So I've got to do something, and I've got to add in extra edges and vertexes, okay? So mesh tool by here, insert edge loop, okay? So go to mesh tools, insert edge loop. I'm going to click, where you see it's gone a little bit too wide, I'm going to click in by here, and I'm going to drop new edges in there. I'm going to Alt click and middle mouse button to come up this end. I'm going to add some edges and vertices by here, and I think by here as well. So what I can do now is come back to my normal selection tool over on the left, right click, come to vertex mode, select these vertexes, and then get the scale tool, and I'm going to scale them outwards like that, and maybe just move them so they align with the edges a bit better. Get these ones, select these, R for scale, scale them outwards, and maybe move them slightly just like that. Now, when you do go to move them, don't move them from the center, because that can cause other problems. You just want to move them left and right. So just use this one, okay? And I'm now going to hold Alt, middle mouse button to come down, get these ones, hit R to scale, and I'm going to push them in like so. Let's zoom in with the middle mouse wheel if you want. And also hit W if you just want to move them to align them a bit better. Get these end ones, and yeah, great. So that's what we've got. We've got the handle modelled. Now don't worry about this little bulgy bit up here. We'll look at that later. I'm going to hit spacebar, and now I can come into my perspective view, holding Alt and the left mouse button. I can kind of have a look at what I've got. The handle's too thick at the moment, but let's not worry about that. What I want to do is I want to start building this little area now. So we need quite a few sections. And what I mean by sections is where it's split down. I've added these edge loops in, these sort of extra points. We need to do that quite a few times here because we've got a nice curve that we want to get. So I'm going to be working in top and perspective view at the moment. If I right click and go to, just click off, right click, go to face this time, I want to get this face by here, and I want to extrude it outwards to build more geometry. So you can see that one selected because it's gone orange when you click it. So with that selected, I'm going to go to Edit Mesh and Extrude. Other times I'm going to be hitting Control E because Control E is just the quick way of doing it. So hit Extrude, and what you've got now is you've got this little box, but you've also basically generated more geometry. So once you've hit Control E or Extrude, you can just get this blue arrow and pull outwards, and you can see it's actually pulled new geometry out. And also, let's get rid of this box, it's really annoying. Also, what you want to do is you want to make it wider. Now, the red arrow will pull it side to side. The red square is scale. So that'll scale it outwards, and now you're starting to get that shape. So that same face is still selected, but let's just click off, for example. I'm now going to make sure I'm in face mode, select that face, same again, Control E, pull it outwards, and scale it outwards with the square, not the arrow, and we're starting to take shape. I can see that it's still selected, so I don't need to click off and reselect, so I'm just going to hit Control E again, come outwards like this, and move that box, pull outwards a little bit in scale, and finally one more time, Control E, move out, and I'm going to scale in just a touch just to get that nice curve. Okay, right, so let's click off in this empty space up here, And what you can do is go right click and object mode. So it selects the whole object. And let's have a little look. So this is our fork so far. It's very, very thick, but don't worry. We've got the basic view from above, almost like we're working with a silhouette, aren't we? Now next, we've got this issue. We want to bring these prongs out. Now remember earlier, I used something called the insert edge loop tool to add edges. What we want to do is we want to cut this down here and add in all these edges so we can extrude faces individually. So mesh tools, come to insert edge loop, wherever it is, there we go. And I'm gonna look in my perspective view because I've got a nice view there, but I'm gonna make my selections in this top view to be more accurate. So we want to put an edge right by here. Okay, we also want another edge by here. There we go. And click by here, and then by here, and then by here, and then by here. Because if we look in our perspective view now, what we can do, get our selection tool, come back, click off, right click, get your face mode, click this individual face, Control E, and now we can, oh, wrong way, that was an error. We can now pull this out, okay? And we're basically doing what we were doing before, but individually. And if we zoom in, this is all very well and good, but this corner now is off. So right click, vertex, click and drag to select those vertexes. Remember, it's not just selecting the top one, it's selecting this bottom one as well, because we're clicking and dragging and it's directly on top. Get our move tool, shortcut is W, move it over. And now we're really getting that shape. So right click, let's get a face again, Control E, and pull it out. Let's go right click and vertex mode, select these vertexes, W for move, move it in. Right click, let's select that face, Control E, pull it out, and I'm going to zoom in here, right click, vertex mode, click and select them, hit the W key, and pull it in like so. And what we've got is we've got our first prong for that fork. What you basically want to do now is you want to rinse and repeat this. So I'm going to right click, go back to face, select that face, and I'm going to hit Control E. I'm going to zoom out in this one just so I can see. I'm going to pull it out to around about the same place. I want to do it in 3 sections, and I want the sections to line up. And there's a reason for that, and we'll come to it later, okay? What I'm going to do now is go back to vertex mode, just pull with the W key or the move tool by here, make sure you select these and pull them in, and yeah, that's fine. So come back, face mode, select that end face, Control E, pull it out, make sure you're pulling the arrow, not the scale, otherwise it's not going to do anything. Pull it out by the blue arrow, jump back into vertex, select these vertexes, get the move tool, and you guys basically know what I'm doing now. So I'm going to do one more, get the face, end face, Control E, pull it out, and then right click, go to vertex mode. I want to pull those vertexes in a touch like that, and these vertexes now in like that, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to time lapse myself doing the next 2 parts for you just to speed that up. Okay, so I now got my fork. If I come into my perspective view, so I'll come in, first of all, actually, I'm still in face mode. So right click the model, go to object mode, and we got the whole object selected on itself then. I'm going to put my mouse in perspective view, hit space, and Alt and right, I get mixed up with my left and right, yeah, right click to zoom out, or you can use a scroll wheel, and Alt and left click to have a look around. Right, so that's what we've got. Now, if we look from the side view by here, also labeled as the front to make things more confusing, it's really, really flat. So first of all, what we want to do, select object mode, come to scale, and we're going to scale it downwards. Again, if you click and drag from the middle, it does it to all X, Y, and Z. We just want to do it in the Y like this. So make it really, really thin. Cool. Next thing we want to do is we want to start lining this up properly. So what I'm going to do, right click, vertex mode, I'm going to select these end vertices and hit W key, and I'm going to move them up just to kind of match like that. Click and drag these ones, and you can tell what I'm about to do. Click and drag these individually. Let's just pop back in here for a second just to show you something. Even though I was only clicking and dragging over 2, it's actually selecting all of these because they're on the same plane. They're all behind each other. But anyway, yeah, so I'm going to come through, get all of these, move them up, and move these up. Make sure, again, right-click, you're in vertex mode, select, do them one by one, and you can come back if this one didn't look as if it was matching up properly. You can come back and tweak things, but let's just get these all lined up like this. And then we should be nearly ready to go. There's a few things that we need to fix, but we're very, very nearly there, and you very nearly have your first 3D model, so well done. This, again, this is the reason why I wanted all our, our segments in here. This is why I wanted them all to be aligned with each other, because, again, when in this view we click and select, it selects all of them in a line because they are behind each other. So that's why I wanted them all to be, these segments to all be aligned. Now, let's have a look in this 3D view. We've actually got a nice sort of bent fork in there, haven't we? If we look back in this view by here, actually we haven't got a nice bend by there. Quick way of fixing that. Let's go to Mesh Tools, insert another edge loop. Click and drop it in there. Get your selection tool, right click, vertex, select them, hit W, move them up, and we'll get a bit nicer curve now. And it is still quite rigid, obviously, but we'll sort that later. Let's just check. Yeah, for the most part, that's a nice curve. Banging. Right, let's pop out. Let's pop back into this one. Okay, what I'm going to do is right-click the fork and just go to object mode. So we've just got the fork. Now it's a little bit see-through, so let's click it. And what you'll notice in my attribute editor by here, make sure that one's selected, is I've got loads and loads of things in here, and this is all the little tweaks and the extrudes that we did. So I want to get back to my material, and it's going to take me a while to click. So what we can do is right-click the model and go to material attributes. And it'll just show us the attributes or the properties of the material. And we can come to transparency and turn it back down. So now when we click an orbit, we've got this nice fork. The other thing is what we want to do is let's hit 3. When you've got this model selected, it's quite, if we look at it, it's quite rigid and angular, especially down here. Select it and hit 3 on the keyboard. And we now have a smooth version of it, which looks really, really nice. However, let's look at the back. That's a little bit too thin. So select the model, hit 1 on your keyboard. This is what we've got. 3 smooths it. So what we want to do is we want to keep that back edge. So let's go to Mesh Tools, insert an edge loop, click and just insert it just by there, and one at the bottom. Okay. Now right click back to object mode, get your selection tool, select it, 3. Now we've got a more sturdier end, because it just gives it, the way smoothing works is, because there were these divisions at the back, it was just smoothing it, taking an average between what was there before. I won't go into the maths of it, but you need to add edge loops. So hit 3 on the keyboard. We have got a really, really nice looking fork now. And yeah, it's really realistic, that shape. So that's really good. Yeah, so I don't think there's actually anything more. That is our final fork. Now what you can do, I'm not going to do this, but what you can do is, this is only a preview, so you can go to modify and convert smooth mesh preview, which is, that's what it is. The smoothing of that mesh is a preview, but you can go and click convert that to polygons, and you've got a mad polygon count. So I'm actually not going to do that. Don't do that if you're following along for this course. Just leave it as it is. But look, you've got your first ever model now in Maya, if this is your first model. But yeah, brill. So what we can do is move now on to the next video tutorial, where we'll look at modeling a spoon.